Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Getaway Takeaway finale recap. I am your host, Naomi, joined as always by my icon, my legend, my Miss Terry. I have JD with me. JD, hi, how goes it?
We made it to the finale. Such a short but enjoyable ride. I'm doing great. How are you?
Short but enjoyable ride is quite opposite of what Patch and Foreign had to endure on this episode today. It was not short and not an enjoyable ride.
Georgia too, arguably.
Yes, that's also true. Although I think the drop I could do, it's the swinging back and forth, and being high up that I think would terrify me a little bit too much. We're gonna talk about it. In case you don't know, we are talking about the Nebula original, The Getaway. We're talking about the finale. So if you haven't watched yet, can't recommend enough. Starting from the beginning, everybody's a snitch. It's so much fun. We love talking about it all season, and this is the finale episode. JD, overall, starting from the very beginning, what did you think of the finale?
Broad strokes finale, I think it's everything that you could have asked for. I think you get three great reactions to finding out that the conceit of the entire game is that everyone is a snitch. I think you get a great end game twist. I was honestly pleasantly surprised by how the mechanics of this final run of the game breaks down. And I mean, I feel like this is something that I've been praising about the show since the first episode, but I just love seeing this cast interact and have fun and like genuinely care about each other, which is something I feel like I'm not entirely used to in this realm of like competitive reality television. So it's been really nice.
Yeah, I feel like we're so used to cast being like, I really love all of you guys, and being like, well, that's fucking lies. But okay,
Hmm.
I believe it with everybody here. I think they're so fun. I was very kind of not emotional, but I just loved the moment where they all piled into the car at the end. That last part to me was like, oh, this is the best summary of how much fun they're clearly having during the program. Well,
Exactly. Yeah.
I also just have to say, like, I don't think they're watching, but if they are, I'm really happy that the Jet Lag guys took a chance, that Nebula took a chance on creating their own reality show, producing something to this level, and putting it on Nebula is, I think, a great way to bring people to the site. It's definitely worth telling somebody, hey, get a Nebula subscription, check it out, and then watch all of Jet Lag all at the same time. So I thought it was a really good one
Exactly.
they went out on.
I definitely think the originality of the Getaway and jet lag, to your point, it's not just selling a streaming service as having, Survivor in a fat suit, for instance. It's truly original and, in my opinion, innovative content. And, God bless Wendover for that.
That's a great point. Well, let's talk about what happened in the episode because I had a ton of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I want to dissect all of the intricacies of this episode with you. Okay, so let's start off right away.
Let's hit
Great
it.
quote from Foreign. We're forgetting the most important thing, which is Matt in a dress. Okay, go off, King. I don't know if that was the most important thing, but sure. So
I mean,
funny
it was an
to
important
finally
fashion
care.
moment, clearly.
Hilarious for Foreign to finally care about this element of the game, which of course has no impact whatsoever on anything that's happening. And I don't think the contestants seemed all that thrown off by it. We hear a little bit more from Patch about like, was he suspicious of there actually being all snitches? And he said his biggest suspicion was on Foreign, which I think is a totally accurate read of how
Very
Foreign has been
valid.
playing the game.
I think that's very intentional.
He
Very
has
by design.
quite that subtle throughout the entirety of the program. That's for sure. Well, Steven sort of remarks on something in the van as they're headed to the next challenge. He says that because everybody participated in the last challenge, the sort of scavenger hunt to the fullest extent, that he thinks the snitch has been caught, or he thinks the snitch has been caught, and
Hmm.
asks the group if they also think that the snitch has been caught by one of the three eliminated members, Matt, Dan, or Patch. Georgia, they're all not sure, but they speculate that there could be another twist to look out for. Georgia says, "Can you please not do another twist? I think it will kill me." And Florin says, "My stomach can't take it," which is certainly a manifestation that is about to come
Yeah.
true during this episode.
Careful what you wish for, I guess.
Mm. Mm. So I'm really curious, JD, about this conversation that Steven brings up and
Yeah.
your perspective about the idea that Steven says, like, hey guys, we all did that last challenge and we beast moded it. Is that a valid reason to, in a world where maybe not everyone's a snitch, say, yeah, maybe there isn't a snitch left?
I think if you're playing from the point of view of a loyal player, then that's like you I feel like that's a world that you have to start considering once you make the first vote. And I feel like that's a world that players were putting forward as soon as Matt was the first person voted out. So I I think it's a harmless train of thought to explore, but the question still remains that at the end of the next challenge, are we going to have a vote? Like, if we do have a vote, like,
Mm.
what's the point of it? What's the function of it? It still has those questions there, but, you know, I feel like the answers are much more in the air in that sense, you
Yeah.
know, not as direct.
Yeah, and so speaking of foreign, I think what's really interesting here in like the foreign Steven relationship is that like this game is just as much about getting to the end as it is figuring out the snitch. The snitch is the math
Hmm.
for the real social strategy game, which is get to the end and win. And they don't know that you want to get to the end without this with like whoever. And foreign, I think, kind of lost track of that, not only through the last couple of rounds of voting, but also specifically in this now.
Hmm.
But I want to talk about that, but first I will intro the challenge and then I'll explain why I want to talk about it like that. So they are at the Glenwood Caverns Adventure Park, which looks amazing and
Looks
terrifying.
fun.
You would go to this? You would have fun at this?
Yeah, hell yeah.
I'd be so scared. I'd
I
be
love amusement
terrified.
parks. I love a good roller coaster. I
Okay.
haven't been on a roller coaster in years, but I love the adrenaline rush.
We should
It's
do
so
like
fun.
a Survivor New York trip to Six Flags. I was
Can
thinking
we?
about that.
Oh my god.
That would be kind
I
of
would
fun.
love that.
I'd be scared, but I would do it. I used to hold everybody's bags when we would go in high school in band. Like I'd be like, "I'll hold your purse while you go on
Yeah.
the ride." So they're at the adventure park, and the three contestants are terrified. They're like, "No, no, no, no! Don't pull in
Don't
there."
turn right. Don't turn right.
Yeah, that would be me, and clearly not you.
Don't
You'd
turn the
be like,
van.
"Let's go."
Hmm.
The challenge today is to complete the 4 stages as quickly as possible. If their combined time in completing it is over 3.5 hours, then the $3,000 all goes into the snitch stash. But if they complete it in time, $3,000 to the loyal loot, which of course we don't want technically. So it's
Hmm.
combined time. So yeah, 3.5 hours is a long time. But really that's what, like
An hour,
hour
10
10 per
minutes
person.
each.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the challenge actually is well, is intended to fly by in, an hour or so. Does it? No. We'll get to it.
We'll
So
get there.
they're also playing for power. They will have all their regular single votes, but if they finish a stage the fastest, they'll receive an additional vote chip. So essentially, if you finish all 4 stages, you could earn 4 extra votes in the final vote. So Stephen and Georgia, if they want to maintain their alliance and have a voting majority over foreign, need to earn at least 2 extra votes in order to keep the playing field.
Between the two of them, yeah.
Yeah, even. Yeah, they certainly need 1 each, and they need possibly 3 each if they want to sort of stay ahead. So this is where I want to get into foreign strategy a little bit.
Hmm.
Why don't you try for more of the extra votes? I can understand him wanting to stall, but he was doing so
I
good that he could have gotten 3 extra votes and stalled on the last one.
I think this is to your point about where Foreign and Steven's priorities lie throughout this episode. I feel like Foreign was way more focused on, the mystique behind the snitch and not so far as, what its game function is. Whereas Steven, to your point, was focused on getting to the end, which is, the goal for any player in this game, regardless of role. I think Foreign kind of skipped that step a little bit. And also, I think maybe put too many eggs in that basket of, okay, if I could make it look like Stevens the snitch, it'll be an easy sell for Georgia to vote for him. So
Yes, and
I think those are where those snitch philosophies branch out.
it's a really interesting point actually, because I think that without Georgia being the snitch, maybe she's more convinced of, this opportunity, or convinced of the idea of what Foreign ends up pitching in the end, which is, hey, Steven totally threw that first challenge. What do you mean you couldn't find the puzzle piece? Which of course is Foreign's fault. We'll talk about it. But that is a really interesting point, JD. You're so smart. I just think you're so smart.
And I mean, like, certainly Georgia too, if she was actually a loyal player, would be asking herself those questions, but she's not, because in her head, she's the snitch. So nothing about Foreign and Steven's relationship matters. Like, they could be against each other all they want to be.
Yeah. It's that is what is interesting about this game, interesting dynamically. And you almost wish that you get the confessional of Georgia saying, like, I know that the pitch was this, but it doesn't matter to me because I'm the snitch. Like, there is a very interesting dynamic here. So in the challenge, let's talk about it a little bit. Okay, so stage 1, pretty easy. Find a puzzle in the cave. Very amazing race. Once again, loved it.
Yeah.
You have to complete the puzzle in order to be able to leave the cave and move on to the next stage. So everyone's getting their secret words from their puzzles, except for Foreign has hidden all of Steven's pieces.
Well, just one. To Foreign's credit,
He hit a
just
couple
one
of them, I think. He had
Well, I think it was
2 or
one of
3.
each, right?
Oh, did he? Oh, he had one of each. He was throwing those pieces everywhere. He was
I lived for it,
sabotaging.
honestly.
It was amazing. What did you think of this decision to sabotage, and kind of how Steven reacted to it?
I
Love him.
actually think this was a very smart sabotage from Foreign, because it has no effect on his time and he could still potentially win, or I think he does end up winning the extra
Yes,
vote
this
for this
round,
stage.
yeah.
So, and it also boosts the time up a little bit with no cost to Foreign himself. So I loved it. I thought it was super smart.
I agree. I thought this is the moment where I was like, oh, Foreign's really playing to win those chips. And like Georgia and Steven has some tough competition. Like, he's not just going to let them beat him on every round. And I also didn't think that Foreign was going to be a weak competitor to begin with in this
To
challenge.
begin with, yeah.
Yeah. But I was certainly thinking to myself, like, oh, who knows what's going to happen? So that was very interesting to see. And I thought that Georgia and Steven were probably like, oh, fuck, oh, fuck, oh, fuck. We got to get going. Very interesting to see Georgia complete hers. She heads out there and she's right behind Foreign. So he didn't do a great job hiding Georgia's. But Steven is puzzled. Steven is bum puzzled. He is confused. He is lost in the caves. He is trudging around. I love on a Survivor challenge or any other challenge when somebody reaches just, I call it whiny baby mode. And that's not to insult Steven, but it's just when you reach a point of frustration during a challenge where you're like, fuck this, fuck you, and screw you for setting me up doing this. And you're mad as hell. People enter it actually a lot in The Amazing Race, where when they can't find something, they start just melting
Just that
down.
kind of like, yeah.
I loved it.
Complete frustration.
Yeah.
I felt for her in that moment, because I mean, how would you know that you would have to look up in order to find your missing piece?
Yeah, and it's specifically like it's interesting. I wonder what would have happened if he had found it, because the rules, I believe, say like it's on the ground. So, and he starts, going, it's on the ground. I'm looking on the ground and I don't see anything. Steven, calm down. Stephen, please. Like, this is not a theater performance, please. So I wonder what would have happened if he had seen the puzzle piece up in the air and thought to himself, like, who did that? Because certainly that's
Mhm.
against the rules of the challenge. Just something I was wondering if he would ever get to comment on. But instead, he takes a different piece from one of the other contestants and says, "Is
Great
this?"
moment of lateral thinking, by the way.
Yeah. And good on the producers for allowing this to happen, because
Mhm.
honestly, I don't think it was really like he didn't Adam didn't need to let him through, but I think it was
Yeah.
in the spirit of the game to let him Steven continue on competing.
Yeah, exactly, in the spirit of the game. Definitely. I mean, and I feel like this is another one of those, like, production off the cuff moments where, you know, it was a circumstance or an outcome that, the production wasn't necessarily expecting, but they're just having fun with it, and they're just making a decision that, is harmless, but also seems fair and also, like, credits, you know, effort being put into playing the game. So, yeah, thumbs up for me.
Where, if it's not in the rules, you might as well. You might as well
Yeah.
try and sabotage it. Genius move from Foreign. But then Foreign does something not so genius, which is that they go to the next stop, which is on this. The next stage is in essentially this canyon swing that terrifies me to my core. Okay, do you want to know a fun story? Okay, when I was a kid, um, I went on the Viking ship ride at the county fair, which is basically like a pendulum ride where you're
Yeah.
sitting in the seats. And I was with my friend Emily, and Emily was like, "We have to go on. Let's go in the back. The best way to do it is to go in the back." I'm like, "Okay, sure." Maybe I'm like 10 or 11. I don't know. I'm young, but I'm also like trying to be cool and tough.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But I'm still a little baby inside. So we sit in the back, and it is so scary. I am like, because also I'm like a little bit, I'm small, I'm a child. So I'm like
Fair,
sliding
yeah.
up out of the seat. I'm terrified that I'm going to go flying. I cry so hard that they stop the ride. That they like,
They stopped the ride? They
they're like,
stopped
yeah,
the
they
ride?
stopped. I'm screaming and crying so hard that they stopped the ride. And I maintain that I was right to do it. I was so scared. It was terrifying. So I don't understand why Emily told me to get on the ride that day, but it's whatever. It's fine.
We
I've
forgive
never
you,
gone on one
Emily.
of those since. Like, they're just the way that you feel like you're gonna like slide up and like ascend to
I
heaven is like,
love that.
no,
I
no.
love that feeling.
Strap my ass in, put 10 seatbelts on me. No way.
I guess I'm like an adrenaline junkie. I feel like that's something I'm realizing about myself.
Yeah, sometimes I get nervous on ladders too. It's just like anything where you're like, I could die. It just my brain kind of lights up and says no, thank you. You
Mhm.
know, even like when I'm on like a balcony, it's just I think it's the like Final Destination doom in my brain where I'm like, this balcony could collapse. Like when you're in like a stadium seating and it's like if you just fall forward, you're going over.
You're
Like I
done.
just get
Yeah.
freaked out. Yeah, can't do it. Can't do it. Anyways, not to be too dark. We're going on this canyon ride and everybody lives, so it's fine. Um,
We're all fine.
so it's 20 questions on the giant swing. You can only ask questions while the swing is swinging. Foreign stalls for time and doesn't ask any questions the first round to patch. Georgia goes fast. She gets it, is screaming in
She
Matt's
nails
lap.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Screaming bloody murder into Matt while also correctly asking questions and ascertaining what the answer is. Genius from her. I thought, JD, that the biggest mistake Foreign made is that he should have tried to finish this quickly. I know it seems like the perfect
Mhm.
opportunity to like sneak on by, but like you just don't know what's coming up down the pipeline and you don't know for sure how Georgia or Stephen are going to vote. So you should try and gain as many extra votes as possible. What did you think?
Yeah. I think so too, but I also, and this goes back to that, like, split in snitch philosophy we were talking about, but I don't think that, acquiring extra votes was something that Foreign was focused on, because I feel like the primary focus for Foreign was getting like landing a finger to point somewhere, whether it be Georgia, whether it be Steven. I feel like obviously throughout the season, Steven is the better sell between the two. But if Foreign is able to build, this irrefutable argument against someone, then, as long as the votes fall in that direction, I guess, is Foreign's thinking. But yeah, I think that was the level that Foreign was thinking on, and less so of how do I manipulate these certain number of votes in order to survive to the next round.
Yes, and I can understand wanting the 3K. Of course you want the money, but as we always say, and Georgia said last time, you got to be there to get the money. Like,
that's true.
You try really hard in last time's challenge because you wanted to win and be safe and go further, and like you need to make sure you're there even more than getting the money. So,
but I mean, it's also a question of winning what ends up being like 3K versus 6K, right?
Yeah.
So
well, that's why I think you should just sabotage like the later rounds. But like,
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
You have a shot at getting it, get it. Like, go get it. Because eventually he really doesn't end up with any other opportunities to win the stages in order to like possibly profit. Like he doesn't have any more opportunities to earn coins because Georgia gets ahead of him, and then Georgia and Steven sort of catch up on the stage 3 on the
third
drop.
stage, yeah.
And then in stage 4, it's just chaos. So who knew who that was going to win that one? But it wasn't like Foreign had an all out and out lead. So as I mentioned, Georgia aces through this, so she gets immediately +1. So Foreign has an extra chip, Georgia has an extra chip, and she heads to the Tower of Terror. The terror being Sam Denby sitting there with you. They have to recreate a
shouting nonsense at you.
Yes, after doing a drop ride. Now, JD, what is the first thing you think of when you see backs of cards?
The genius, of course. The which game was it? Was it the
Open Pass?
Open Pass, yeah.
Of course. Yes.
Oh my god.
That was exactly what I thought of. And I noticed it and I was like, they're different colored cards.
Doesn't matter. You noticed it right away.
Well, I just noticed it because like it showed it in the graphic, and I was like, it just caught my eye. I didn't necessarily think that it mattered, but when Steven said like, "Oh, I got it right. This is definitely right." I was like, "Oh, I bet the back of the card matters too." Like, but I didn't clock it necessarily intentionally. I just sort of noticed it because I thought it was a weird graphic design choice.
Yeah, I didn't clock it at all until they told Steven, or I guess Steven figured it out himself, or when production revealed that the backs mattered. I think that happened first.
Which is a great addition. How do you feel about not only this memory challenge, but the addition of having the backs be part of it?
I mean, it certainly adds a layer of cover for any potential like snitchery going on. But I also think like it's a nice extra layer of challenge. It's the final challenge. Why not make it, a little more difficult? Why not make it a little more, not as straightforward? So I didn't mind it. I liked it.
Yeah. It was really funny, and I think a great use of, I guess I would call it like a stressor challenge. Like, I don't know how to describe it. A challenge where something is happening that is very intentionally sabotaging a player's chance at maintaining their memory and maintaining like the sense of rhythm that they have. I don't know how else to describe it really. But I thought this was really funny. Sam was such an asshole. Oh my God. This counts as
George is right. He really does have that like evil stare mastered down. I didn't really notice it until this episode.
Well, he lost the baby fat, and now he's like a little devilish prince. I don't know how to describe it. Like he's so intense, and he did a good job. Like I really enjoyed it. But I was like, man, I would have been cursing him out like so quickly, and then I would of course had to do the challenge like 5 times over for cursing him
I
out.
probably would have just ended up like forward and just drowned him out.
Yeah, memorize. Of course, everybody, if you need tips, we're there's a way for you to memorize things. So that's how you win survivor challenges and these card memory challenges. Or you can do what Steven did, which is like, I don't know, make up a whole storyline about these.
Yeah, he like gives a card a name, a action, and a place. I don't know. I've heard of this card counting trick before, but it makes zero sense to me.
So when it comes to the fourth challenge, well, Steven finishes this challenge eventually first. He laps Georgia. I thought it was such a funny moment where he figures out that the backs of the cards matter. He sees that Georgia is like traumatized from going down too many times. And instead of saying to her, Georgia, the backs of the cards also matter, knowing that also they're totally aligned on their goal to outbid Thorin in these final moments, does not say to her whatsoever that the backs of the cards are relevant.
I mean, he does say the colors. He does shout the colors. I do remember that. And I also remember thinking, what help is that? The colors of what?
I thought that was such a hilarious, like, guys, where is the teamwork here? What are we doing here?
But I mean, also, in his defense, he's also the snitch. Like the snitch in his head. So any form of sabotage is helpful.
It's true. That's the trickiness of the show, isn't it?
That's the genius of
going on. So Steven finishes first. He has an extra chip. Everybody has an extra vote chip at this point. So stage 4, as you said, JD, a taskmaster task of a challenge. Get the ball in the cup. No throwing. Only using the items provided. You must stay behind this line. You know, Alex Horn is applauding somewhere in a tiny little house in Chiswick. This was funny. Particularly, I thought the funniest moment to me was that Steven was like, "Oh, I'm here so early. I'm just gonna kill time." And then at a certain point, he realized, like, "Oh shit! Like this is really hard. I didn't even need to kill time. This just sucks."
I do love the moment of innovation where I think it's Foreign who starts rolling the ball into the cup, or starts using a ramp to roll the ball into the cup, and then everyone just starts adopting that strategy. I was curious to see if anyone would try to break away from that at any point, but that seemed to be the most consistent strategy at the end of the day, is what everyone ends up using.
Well, and then they use the fishing line.
Right, that's true.
I think the problem with like trying to roll the ball in is they weren't building like boundaries. You know, we've seen it on Taskmaster a couple times.
Yeah, like catch-alls.
Yeah, I think that you could have had an interesting thing where it's like you have a pole that's almost like a push, and you're pushing it into the hole almost with these boundaries, because you can manipulate the ball over the line. It's just that you can't throw it.
Yeah.
Interesting. You make a good point. Well, I thought this round was so funny because it didn't matter how much they stalled. This round sabotaged everybody, cast and crew, emotionally and physically. This was brutal.
I mean, the little side game that the eliminated players were doing too. just complete eternal like purgatory. That's the word I'm looking for. Purgatory.
Yeah. So I know we kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, but you know, the idea of making a time-based task for the finale, knowing that everyone's a snitch and knowing that everyone will stall, right? How, especially because this is just, you know, game design.
I think Adam does say something too, where it's like we kind of should have expected this to happen because they're all going to be stalling.
Yes. So this is kind of why game design corner. This is kind of my question to you is like, what do you tweak to make this challenge not so stalled out, or like not have everybody like dragging along? Because in my opinion, one of the big mistakes is that it's an individual challenge that also hinges on everybody's combined times. Like, it just doesn't fully work as like a challenge where the incentive is to look at somebody and say, well, you're the snitch, because nobody's paying attention to how long X person took
Right.
on, especially if you don't read out like Big Brother style, like, you finished with a time of 6 minutes, 25 seconds. Veto, yay!
I think a fix that could, especially for the last like 3 stages, that I think could be applied is, instead of making it time based, make it attempt based. Either have it be you need to complete this in X amount of attempts, or if it takes you this amount of attempts, you lose this amount of money. I think for like the puzzle, I mean, I feel like something like the puzzle, I feel like it could have been a mix of both, a mix of some of the stages being time based, some of them being attempt based. Um, but yeah, I agree. I think either the amount of time that strictly running a time based challenge would account for should have been better accommodated for, I guess. With the consideration that people will be actively trying to sabotage this challenge, or at least with the expectation that people are actively trying to sabotage the challenge. Sorry. um but I think having, especially if you put it in like a limit sense, in having attempt based stages or challenges, I think it's definitely easier to account for time that way, because you can it's a better way to estimate if one attempt takes X amount of minutes than, say, 5 attempts will take you X times 5 amount of
Yeah,
minutes. I feel like logistically that might have been the workaround to this issue.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, when we're making Survivor New York, it's always like, how long is this challenge going to take? More than 15 minutes? Cut it down. Like, you do
Mhm.
sort of have to think about the way that a challenge will go and how to speed it up. So I'm glad that they did things like, the penalties, and they took the opportunities to, like, let Steven go through. Maybe that even comes down to like saying, well, if you max out at, it's like in The Amazing Race, right, where it's like, yeah, you take the
Mhm.
penalty, or then it's a max of 2 hours, then you move on. I don't know, something along the lines of like maximum times, and what you were talking about would certainly benefit the show. So it's tough, but I also understand that, like, when you're designing your very first reality television show, not everything goes to plan, and you
Yeah.
have this location where it's like a beautiful location. It must be a pain in the ass to film at, to be safe at. So I completely
Shout out to
understand.
Valentina
Shout
again
out to
for all her
Valentina.
work.
Shout out to Amy. Shout out to everybody. Like, this looked very difficult and stressful. So I can
Mhm.
understand why some things fall through the crack. And also, I thought it was very funny that the producers are just looking at each other like, this is boring. That will happen sometimes when like Survivor players are not getting a puzzle. Like, I'll just be looking and being like, are they that stupid?
Mm.
It's not that hard. Like, oh, I
That does happen to me recently on Survivor Bushwick.
that was true. But that puzzle is actually hard, in your
That's
defense.
fair. That's
There
fair.
was a puzzle on Survivor Philadelphia, episode 2, cracked me up. It was just, the tribe is safe is the answer. It took them, first of all, forever to come up with this. But then one of the alternate options they pitched was, the beast is fire. Girl, what's that mean? The beast
What?
is fire. I
Wait, I
was
love that. I
I was
love that. The beast is
dying.
fire.
I got an audible laugh out loud from me for that one. The beast is fire. So it's
That sounds
tough.
like brain rot. That sounds like the next brain rot phrase.
You can never fully comprehend what stupid, shit, like what nonsense a player is going to come up with in a game.
The
Oh
beast is
man.
fire.
So I should mention that Georgia eventually makes like a cup sticky fishing pole thing. She puts hers in.
Mhm.
Steven gets his in, and then Foreign takes her cup, sticky pull and puts it in. They wrap up the day. Unfortunately, it took 4 hours and 33 minutes to do this whole challenge. Like,
A whole
oh my God.
hour. A
Whole
whole hour
additional
more than
hour.
necessary.
That means basically everybody took like what, an hour 30, hour 40 to do the challenge.
Hmm.
Brutal. I felt bad, but I also did enjoy like how pissed off everybody was. But then knowing that the entire $3,000 went to the snitch stash, they were not
Yeah,
that.
I mean, they're all like doubling their well, not their bank account, but like the snitch loot certainly is
Yeah,
getting doubled
it's
nearly.
around $6,000. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love this challenge design from the perspective of increasing the snitch stash. I just think that the problem was like it was all or nothing, and so of course they were going to make sure that it was nothing.
That's
As a
true.
snitch.
That's true.
So we have a discussion. Foreign talks a lot about like putting his body on the line, but I think the most interesting moment of this strategy, JD, is that Foreign is trying to pitch to Georgia as Steven goes up to vote, saying like, Steven is the snitch. Why couldn't he find his puzzle piece? Such an interesting dynamic he's done before of using his sabotage to throw somebody under the bus, like Dan in
Hmm.
episode 2. But JD, this is a really interesting pitch to make secretly right before the vote. Do you think that this is the right move to do, the wrong move? How does Foreign even try to get out of this, knowing that he was
I
pretty due?
think I think this last ditch pitch, I think this last minute pitch from Foreign is better done than not, for sure. I think pitching your case in any capacity is a good thing if you want to stay in the game. Um, but I just think it was already too late by the time it was time to vote. I mean, since episode 2, we've had this like strong game relationship between Steven and Georgia. I think that's something that every other player might have missed out on, just how important that relationship was to the entire outcome of the game. But because Foreign missed that, or because misvalued how important that relationship was, the pitch was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, in Foreign shoes in that moment, what the pitch is, because Steven and Georgia are already so like beholden to each other as far as the game goes. They have this pretty much final to, like, they've promised each other the end. So what can you offer as a counter to that? So
Yeah.
it's a I don't think it's a situation that Foreign could have come back from, or if he could have come back from it, I'm not sure how.
Yeah, I think those are all really fair points. And again, it's why we mentioned like really his strategy is that he should have been winning out in the stages, and trying to win extra votes to drive a wedge, because you know that these are both faithfuls, both loyal loot. So you
Hmm.
want to divide them technically. You don't know that they're really snitches, but he should have been having, the goal was to have the majority of the votes, because if he wins, let's say 3, which he could have done, I think he really could have
Right.
done
He could
3.
have.
Then he has 4 votes, and then you have 3 with Georgia, Steven, and the extra third vote that
Whichever
one of
one
them
they
gets.
win, yeah.
And that's the majority. And then it's like, you could tell him to split votes on the 2 of you and then vote 3 strong. Maybe imagine that. Imagine a 2-2 vote split, like a 3-2-2. That'd be crazy.
That'd be wild.
Yeah, but I just don't think it was gonna happen. I've actually pulled off a 3-2-2. Not to humble brag. I've
Ooh,
done it.
soft flex.
But I just think that it was like Foreign's mistake and miscalculation, to not just go for all of the votes. I will say he was an amazing player. He was so funny. I thought he was
Agreed.
hilarious. When he finds out that everybody's a snitch and he just goes, "Oh, this is bullshit." Sam Denby,
I knew
I want to talk to your mother. Like, what's going on?
I knew Ford would have the biggest reaction out of all
Mhm.
of them.
Also, can I just say, as we said, shout out Valentina. It's a beautiful episode. Like, I have to give
True.
everybody on this team credit. The Amazing Race is a show that I think has gotten very boring in the way that it films its spectacular visuals, even though it's a cool city, a cool mountain,
It's
whatever.
regimented for sure.
Yes. This show, I think, was very beautiful, very well shot, dynamic visuals. It looked really cool. I do overall like the decision to alternate between, like, essentially what is very clearly, like, not color corrected footage and color footage to show the production POV versus the player POV. I thought it was a good aesthetic choice. It looked great. The finale, especially those last moments in the sort of hotel area, looked beautiful. I loved all the lights in the background. Like, I just like, I have to give it up for the whole team because I thought it was a beautiful, beautiful looking show as well.
Retweet, copy, paste, fax, send
Like,
it, ship it.
I watched The Mole, and The Mole was cool, but like, there's just something real, like, I don't know.
It feels Netflixy, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like you've seen a million shows on Netflix like it.
Yep.
Like visually.
When is Wendover Productions going to do Love is Blind? But instead they're going to do a variation on Love is Blind that's like Love Can't Hear, and then everyone, you just can't talk to anybody. Everyone has like noise canceling headphones on. Like,
they're all like pen pals, actually.
Yeah. That'd be cool. A dating show that it's only like, my dearest JD, I have missed you for so many days, even though we have only known each other for 5. Like, interesting. That's trademarked us. Trademark Silent Podcast. You can't take that.
DMS.
Okay, so this, by the way, I wanted to mention something. The foreign pitching to Georgia while they're going up to vote is one of the main reasons why we have a no talking during the votes rule in Survivor New York. It is an explicit rule for this reason, which is it's not fair to Steven if when he goes up to vote that conversations can still be had without him, and he is losing his ability to vote once he casts his vote. So, I would just say if the Wendover team hired me to help be a game designer, that this is a rule that you would cut out, so that even though it's good drama, that's the problem. It's like, it's really good drama, so you can't justify it. But in terms of fairness, it's not good drama. Just saying.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there.
Yeah. Okay, so for this beautiful background is amazing. And then Dan starts talking about how, like, they all think they're special snowflakes and they're all narcissists thinking that they were the important ones. I love Dan mugging to camera as always. I mean, this is actually
the bad boy of the Getaway, truly.
This is a great time for me to bring up something a little controversial. So, JD, our good friend Ryan Elder texted me, and he texted me his thoughts on The Getaway because he watched all of it very recently. And I was like, well, text me what you think. And first of all, he's not a Dan fan, which I was like, I don't know if I should read your ideas on air, but I guess I will. Also, my phone kind of like part of the background. Like, kind of.
I don't think so. I was gonna say
no, like, it looks like the same exact like our podcast background, blue and purple. Okay, anyways. Anywho.
Oh, you're asking if it's like blending in? No, I don't think so.
No, but like, look, it's so
it's
cute.
very similar colors though. Yeah, okay. It's very cute.
Okay, Foreign was, let's just say, not great at the game. It seemed like he never really had, this is Ryan Elder's words, not mine, never really had an idea of how he was going to win. And then despite his terrible decision to flip on Patch, he gifted a twist that allowed him to win anyways. And then instead of just trying to win his way to a guaranteed spot in the final 2, he inexplicably decides he's finally going to try to add money to the pot. Truly a head scratcher of a performance.
See, Ryan Elder is too game player Bill.
Game bot.
He's too game bot Bill.
He's too game bot. He says, but he says, otherwise I enjoyed him as a character, and his snitchy behavior was truly hilarious at times. Georgia was obviously the best player by far. Not only was she better at being snitchy, she was also never someone anyone wanted to vote for. I don't think she ever got a vote, right? Anyways, the star of the show, in my opinion. Patch was seemingly the most experienced player in that he had an idea of how social deduction games are played best and seemed to be able to discuss the game in a way that showed he knew how to play. Obviously, figuring out the twist mid-game wins him a lot of points here as well. The rest of them were kind of interchangeable smart white men. Sorry, guys. Just drag. I felt like the production team got dangerously close to self-indulgence at times, but overall, I really appreciated the behind-the-scenes elements, and of course, getting to see the jet lag boys doing something new is always going to be fun. And he mentioned that they could benefit from speaking to experienced casting directors about how to cast more than 50% men. I think that's an interesting topic to discuss in a second. But something that Ryan texted me about, and I talked to my boyfriend about, and now I want to bring here.
Mhm.
The idea of the reveal versus players breaking the game, because I think that's what this show came down to. The reveal of, oh my god, what we get in this finale, we're all snitches, which was adorable, versus allowing a player like Patch to actively break the game and create something really dynamic and interesting. And at the end of the day, the production team valued the reveal more than breaking the game.
Mhm.
How do you feel about all of this, JD, and sort of the result we get in this, everyone raise your hand and reveal that you're the snitch moment?
I think I'm okay with how things turned out, given that the priority was placed on this big reveal at the end. I, I understand that that sacrifices some game decision and like game design choices,
Mm-hmm.
but I also think that with this cast, I feel like this is very much more of like a content creation cast and like a game playing cast. So I think just ultimately all the little like energy, like all the variables of the getaway, let's call them, I feel like lended themselves to a more, what is the best for content decision making process. And I think we see that a couple times. Whereas if we were thinking strictly of what is the best for game design, I think we would have seen something that was a little more closer to jet lag, in the sense where it feels like everything for every single scenario is already thought of. And yeah, I mean, I think it's refreshing to not have that. I'm going to use the word again, but like regimented, like way of thinking of, or like way of approaching a production. I like how loose the getaway
Mm,
felt, and I like how, the game was truly what the players made of it. I think there's an argument to be made about whether Patch was like truly on the case of like breaking the game, or like just
just kind of
had the
spitting.
thought, yeah, just kind of spin for a moment, and or like whether the question of Patch was truly like dissuaded from breaking the game. I think that's something we can talk about maybe a little bit more. But from the fork in the road of, do we design the best game possible versus do we design the best show possible, I think I'm projecting that the decision made was that Wendover and the production behind the getaway decided to make the best show possible. And
Yeah,
I'm happy with the choices that they made with that sort of end goal in mind.
that's a really great way of putting it. I think based off of that, I think the game that would be meant to be broken is on like Tom Scott's channel. Like
Mm,
it's
I
not.
like that show. I like that a lot.
And he did sort of like a genius style game, which I really enjoyed. Sam is on. Sam is
Hmm.
hilariously wearing like his outfit is hilarious. I don't even you just gotta look at it. But that I think is to your point, where the discrepancies between a show that we're used to, where like the intense strategy is there and not only there but meant to be broken. A show like The Devil's Plan is meant to be broken down at every level. Um, but they're prepared for that. They have plans for that. Versus a show like The Getaway is more straightforward. And the idea of somebody breaking it is a little bit more threatening than if it were to happen on a show that was more prepared for it, I guess. So, look, the
Hmm.
reveal is hilarious. I love it. So they collect everybody outside of this hotel, beautiful scenery.
They
Um,
line them up.
Line them up and they say, George and Stephen, please close your eyes. We're going to do the reveal now. So they bring in everybody else while they've got their eyes closed. And they say, if you play the role of the snitch, raise your right hand. And everybody raises their right hand. I know that looks like this is my left hand, but this is, I'm mirrored. This is my right
Yeah,
hand.
StreamYard problems.
And they open their eyes. First of all, no offense, guys. You gotta buy blindfolds. Like, look, production value, I understand. I'll tell you what props you need to buy, but blindfolds is one of them. So they all raise their hand and they reveal that everybody's a snitch. And the way that Steven's face reads is hysterical, where he sort of goes like,
it takes him a second to realize it. It takes both of them a second to realize what I caught.
yeah. Well, they have these really sweet confessionals where they're talking, Georgia and Steven are talking about like, I feel really bad that I had to betray this person, but I hope they can forgive me for doing this. And I think it's kind of a relief to both of them that like, oh my God, we didn't betray each other. This is actually an ideal alliance.
It's definitely that mutual feeling of, oh, you were just as worried about the stuff you were doing to me as I was worried about what I was doing to you. Cool.
Yep.
It's a nice mutual bonding technique, I guess.
I know. I felt kind of terrible for both of them, seeing how panicked they were, and knowing that, like, you know, there's always that terrible moment where like you have to vote out a friend, or you are like, oh shoot, I have to backstab this person. I don't want to do this, and it just kind of hurts your heart. And you're like, I really hope they understand that like it's me or them, and I have to make this choice.
Yeah.
But the moment where Steven he's kind of expecting everybody to be like, oh, you were the snitch. And instead he like looks at everybody else. He's like, why the fuck are you guys here? And then he's like, oh, you're all raising your hands too. And George is so funny. She's just kind of looking at everybody, and then, you know, her mouth just drops in that signature thing. Yeah.
Like, oh.
She was so cute. And then, you know, they each get $6,000. Not bad for a couple days work. That, you know, that's a budge. That's a couple months rent. Good for you.
Yeah.
And they get into the van and they drive off into the night. I thought it was so cute. Congratulations to the whole team for executing this. I think it's really hard to make a good show. And overall, certainly a Nebula subscription well spent. Loved it.
100% agree.
So, JD, who do you most want to see? This is the discussion going around.
Ooh.
On a jet lag season from this cast.
The cop out is certainly to say all of them, but it is the true answer. I think I would love the sort of like deadpan energy Dan would bring to a full season of jet lag, being Sam's partner in a jet lag season especially, and then having those moments where he's like really hype and really into the game. Seeing that switch on and off, I feel like would be an interesting dynamic that we haven't really had with Sam yet. So that'd be cool.
I think Dan would be really fun in a game where it's not social strategy based, where it's not, you know, elimination and voting out, because that seems to be where he struggled.
It's more doing fun challenges. Yeah.
I would love to see Patch, because I think that Patch would kind of be like a Scotty type, where he's like a little awkward. You know, it's like, oh, I gotta be Hello Kitty on the subway. I'm just like, meanwhile, Adam and Ben are like, slap a bow on me, bitch. Let's go.
But Patch would be great as a partner too for like executing game plans.
Yeah, maybe Sam could like keep his winning streak up of having partners and winning. I do feel like when it comes to someone like Foreign, I think he would be hysterical on the show. I think he'd be very Michelle-esque, where it's like he's really bringing out the boisterousness, like the Amazing Race side of like,
the like
hey,
competitive energy.
Give me $10. Like, I need to win the challenge vibe. Yeah, he'd be fun.
I think Georgia would have a similar effect too.
Yeah,
but like a little more calming.
Anything for free, Georgia. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So, walking away from the season, JD, do you think we should do this to our friends at some point? Do you think that we should?
Are you kidding me?
Snitch?
Yes. Oh my God. Okay. One time in undergrad, I used to go to like Mafia Club, and every so often there'd be games where there was no Mafia and everyone was just voting each other out for no reason. So I've been waiting to do something like that to a group of people who would like appreciate it. Who like might hate me for it, but like would ultimately appreciate it.
Blood on the Clock Tower, but everyone's good. Like,
yeah,
that'd be kind of funny.
Oh, have you ever? Wait, what role is it? Not the amnesiac, the atheist. I think is the role where it's like you have to vote out the storyteller to win. This shit gets insane.
Let me say this too. The way that everyone's been doing these Blood on the Clock Tower streams, I would love a Wendover team, jet lag team, Nebula, like a
Oh
one on the clock tower.
yeah.
Y'all listen. I know. I see you.
Get the collab
I see you
together.
going on RHAP. Hit up Dwight. Get them to do it. Maybe I'll tell Dwight to hit them up. That honestly, let's do that.
Is Dwight a Getaway person, a Wendover person?
Probably not, but I can get him.
Can we
there.
convert him?
Yeah, let's do it. Also, were you in that era of like Polygon.com when it was like Brian David Gilbert and all of them?
Yeah.
Like when they would do like Jackbox nights, we're like, oh, you know who I want to see? I want to see the jet lag team design a game for the McElroy brothers. If you're listening to me, God, I know we just said that they should have a like less men in their casting, but if you're listening,
if you're out there, ignore that part for a second.
Ignore that part. Try this. Might I suggest? Yeah, it was really fun. And JD, are you looking forward to the next season of Jet Lag, which I think is going to be in Italy, and I don't know anything else about it based off.
Really? Oh my god, I didn't think there was any information out on it yet.
They had tweeted. Salmon tweeted like a photo of them, I think, at the starting point, which was a couple of weeks ago. Their turnaround time is crazy. When I listen to their podcast,
super fast, yeah,
it's bananas. This obviously must have taken a little bit more time, based on the fact that they actually color graded, because they don't color grade their stuff, which is I could do like hours of being like, what? You don't do what for your show? It's incredible. But I don't, so I won't. Yeah, so it sounds like it's coming out pretty darn soon, maybe a couple weeks from now. I know. I can't wait. Italy, what do you think they're gonna do? Just,
Ooh.
They're gonna have to earn slices of pizza?
Maybe. They Italy isn't really circle shaped.
No, and they don't slice their pizzas in Italy, actually. It's mostly like individual. Maybe they have to play Mario Kart.
Oh.
They just have to build go-karts and then cart all around Italy.
I know. Or like turn public transit into Mario Kart somehow.
Yes. Watch out for the blue shell. Well, JD, this was so fun. Thank you for being here with me on this lovely journey. Thank you, everyone, for watching. JD, what's going on with you? What's up? What do we want to talk about?
The only thing really on my radar is Survivor New York. Next week, super fun, August 22nd to the 25th. Survivor New York, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, ? TikTok?
Nope.
TikTok.
Yes, we're on TikTok. TikTok. Yes, exactly. And we just got, if you look at our Instagram feed, Yam Yam is super excited for this season of Survivor New York. So you should be too. Yes, at Survivor New York on Instagram and Facebook. Survivor New York Season 8, The Divide. We are ready and galvanized to take on the competition. So join us live streaming from August 22nd to the 25th. 20-something new players. 18 to 20 something. If any player is watching this, I'll give them $100. But they won't. None of those players are watching this right now. Very excited for this season to happen. JD will be there. I'll be there. So many other amazing people. So please tune in and enjoy a live stream season of Survivor. Thank you, Silent Podcast. Make sure you're checking out Survivor Philadelphia. Amazing show. And the amazing Big Brother 26 coverage that they're doing all season. Tune in. It's been fun. They did an exit interview with Matt. Who cares if they did an exit interview with Kenny? Who cares? Boo. But they have an amazing recap every episode. So stay tuned here on Silent Podcast. All right, JD, thanks for being here. Let's get in the van and head out of here. How about that?
Let's hit the road.
Bye.